10 years ago, dual sports were pretty much dead, and for good reason. We had a financial crisis. Suzuki were pumping out the same old DR650 and DRZ400 year after year, and we really saw nothing new on the market. And there was good reason for that. We had a GFC, not only that, but bikes like this. In 2008, a middleweight adventure bike came out, and that's all anybody wanted for years to come. But lately, something's changed. And one of those big changes is standing right next to me. This was the big change. Small, affordable adventure bikes that were off-road capable. They were everything like their big brother middleweights were capability-wise, but at a fraction of the price. And they have stormed the market. And if the trend is smaller and more affordable, logically that means there's another step to go here in the market. So who's got next? What comes after or alongside this brilliant move to smaller, more affordable adventure bikes? Well, I think it's the return of the dual sport. By the way, guys, my merch is available if you want a shiny side up mug. It's got the logo on it as well. Head to my store and help support the channel. I'd be very much appreciative. I'm going to continue enjoying my tea. So let's talk about the fall of the dual sport. It really got knocked hard in the 2000s. In the noughties and the 2010s, the dual sport did not do too well. A lot of that came down to the GFC, as it wasn't just the dual sport that got kneecapped, but Japan particularly got hit really hard. And as we know, they make a lot of our favorite dual sports. So from 2008 to 2009, the dual sport category, at least in the US, the category dropped by 42% from 2008 to 2009. So that is almost halved the market sales. That is crazy. And when you looked around, not much was going on in the dual sport world. We can all remember, and it's still a bit of an inside joke, bold new graphics. Particularly the Japanese, it was bold new graphics year after year after year. And you can feel the tension there. A lot of us started to worry, is this the end of the dual sport? And as I said, I remember Everride making a video talking about this because people were genuinely worried that this was the end of the dual sport, because bikes like the F800 GS behind me were so popular and doing very well, but dual sports just could not catch a break. And it got worse because in 2020, we got the WR250R, my beloved very first dual sport. It was discontinued in 2020. Then it got worse in 2021, at least here in Australia. Suzuki discontinued the DR650 here and in a lot of places, again, because of safety standards. So this was peak depression for a lot of us in the dual sport world, because you looked around, what was on the market? We had a very aging and old CRF 250L. There was a KTM 690 Enduro. We of course had the KLX 250S. It had been around for donkey's years, but it's the same as the 250L. No updates, no changes, bold new graphics year after year. But then came this amazing shift. And it wasn't a huge shift, but it was a breath of fresh air. We got the Honda CRF 300L in 2021, and alongside it, Kawasaki brought back the KLX 300. It was only in North America, but it was enough to give everyone hope. And things started to change from there. Safety and emissions regulations, people are starting to get frustrated. I know I am, particularly with new cars and new bikes. They're so tech heavy, there's beeps and dings and safety features everywhere. And it's getting to the point where it gets frustrating with some of these new vehicles just to hop in and drive and enjoy yourself. We've seen this shift in what people want. People are starting to buck the trend of complexity. They don't want all the whiz bangs and features anymore. They value simplicity and the old days of when things just worked and you just enjoyed yourself. Younger people were getting priced out of the middleweight market. I was one of those people. So in 2013, I was able to comfortably afford an F700 GS straight off the showroom floor, albeit a previous year's model, so it had some heavy discounts, but I was able to do so. Then it felt like I blinked. A middleweight adventure bike was just stratospherically expensive, and I wasn't the only one. But it was also the ownership costs as well. Fuel was more expensive, running costs were more expensive, tires, everything had gotten more expensive. And the dual sport is just so damn practical for those kind of situations. Incredibly fuel economic, skinny little wheels, so the tires are very cheap. You've only got one cylinder, so replacement parts, everything is built to a price on a dual sport. So it really is the perfect conditions for the dual sport. With our younger generations looking to make our dollar go further, the dual sport was a natural choice. And then we had what I really was waiting to see. With Kawasaki and Honda taking that chance and releasing the 300L and the 300, momentum started to pick up. Manufacturers saw that Honda and Kawasaki were doing really well with these two bikes. And with Honda and Kawasaki taking on the risk of being the guinea pigs, the other manufacturers saw the easy money there and they jumped on the bandwagon. It's all good to say that dual sports are making a comeback and to cross your fingers and wish upon a unicorn, but do the numbers show the same thing? So 2021 compared to 2020 in the US market at least, sales of dual sport motorcycles were up 18.6%. So that's almost a 20% jump. There's been a specialist market report just done on dual sport motorcycles, and it's got a projection that is pretty damn positive in my personal view. So this specialist report states that the dual sport market globally is worth roughly $4.5 billion. However they came to that number. The positive thing is that they've done projections. So by the year 2033, so call it 9-10 years away from now, their projections are that the dual sport market alone will go from the $4.5 billion US up to a US $7.2 billion. So to put that in percentage terms, that the global dual sport market is going to grow 60% in the next 9 years. Now, what I did notice about that report, they haven't counted for inflation year after year, and that is a massive problem in my opinion. So the rough napkin math on that is counting inflation in and either being overzealous, that's still at minimum a 25% increase in the global dual sport market in the next 9 years. It definitely is a very positive report. And this seems to suggest that this is going to be a long forming trend for the next few years, that the dual sport market is going to grow in strength as well as popularity. And then you've got the biggest indicator that the market is back. The confirmation that proves my point is this: manufacturers are making dual sports again, and not just bold new graphics, we're getting new models. Now that we have the CRF 300L, the 300 Rally, and the KLX 300, all three of which have been out since 2021, but on top of that, all three of those models have received significant refreshes and updates in that time, in the span of 4 years. Whereas previously the CRF 250L had been on sale for a decade and received absolutely no changes at all. So that's evidence enough that the Japanese were making incremental updates in a decent amount of time too. But on top of that, then we get news that KTM is making a 390 Enduro, and lo and behold, it's here and it looks to be pretty decent. And even better news, 25 years after the DRZ400 first hit showroom floors, Suzuki released a brand new model. They are the kings of bold new graphics. That, I think, is the biggest evidence we've got so far. And let's not forget, on the peripheral, we've got excellent bikes like the Cove 450 Rally. And in the background, we've got the Chinese Armada on their way with fantastic new motorcycles every day. So I think we are really positioned in a great spot to really see the dual sport market take off once again. And boy, do I hope that Yamaha come to the party. And that leads us to the future. Where do we go from here? Well, I think we tie it back to where we started. There is a trend where people are downsizing rather than upsizing because of the affordability, the capability, but also they're just easier to ride and easier to use in a lot of situations, particularly off-road, and particularly if you're younger and you're trying to save money, it just makes sense going smaller. That's why the small adventure bike market has been so popular over the last 2 years. And if it's one thing that people realize once they hit the dirt, is as great as these things are, they're still very heavy. And what are dual sports? They're light, yet capable. So I think we're going to see a natural progression of people wanting to get into the dirt even more after riding bikes like the Himalayan 450. And the natural choice is looking to a 300L, a KLX 300, a DRZ4-S. So I think that is a very positive trend. I think the other big deal is we've got a lot more Euro emission standard compliant dual sports, because a big problem for dual sports is a lot of the good ones like the DRZ400, DR650, XR650L, these bikes that you get in North America still. Europe and Australia, because of emissions or safety standards, we just haven't been able to get our hands on them for quite some time. But bikes like this new DRZ4S, the KTM 390 Enduro, the new Hondas, in a lot of circumstances, are being made available in big markets like Europe once again. After it feels like being forgotten for 2 decades, the dual sport is coming back into the consciousness of the off-road rider and the motorcycle rider in general, as well as the manufacturers. We're seeing a trend towards lighter, simpler, more manageable motorcycles that are fun and capable. And honestly, I think this might mean that in the last 20 years, right now might be the best time to buy a dual sport in a very long time. And that makes me feel very positive for the future. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you think the dual sport is making a comeback? Is this a momentary blip in sales and reinvigoration in the market and we're just going to go into stagflation? Or do you think this isn't a comeback at all? Chuck your thoughts down below and let me know. Are you looking at a new dual sport soon? Are you excited looking at the market today? Or are you more into your middleweight adventure bikes or your small adventure bikes? Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And as always, guys, don't forget to stay shiny side up.